Hello, my lovelies. We are going to be talking about nature vampires today. Now, I'm not going to be talking about how to vampire off of nature. You'll have to join Patreon for that. But I did want to talk about a few related topics: nature vampires, nature spirits, primal, like nature. Wow, a bug just like flew right into my face. Primal, like nature, like worship is what wants to come through, and also doing tantric work in nature. So all of these things I'm gonna just sort of flow and channel. I don't really have anything in particular in mind. I was trying to plan this out and I just felt prompted to go outside and start recording. So that's basically what's happening. So I'm not gonna edit this. This is gonna be fucking raw as hell. And yeah, let's get going. So when I did my video on the truth about vampires, I did mention briefly different kind of vampires, and that one of them is a succubus. So I had also mentioned that one of them was a nature vampire. And I'm going to touch on both of these, and that's why I'm bringing both of them up now. But as far as the nature vampire is concerned, and we're going to pause for a second and concentrate on this lovely little man-made brook. Let's flip it. I want to just pause here and talk for a second. So with nature vampires, they essentially vampire off of nature. So not all vampires will vampire off of the life force of beings such as humans, animals, things of that nature, whether it is just the energy or chi, or whether it is like the sanguine or blood, right? So in this case, a nature vampire, and let's just use this as an example, could simply go out in nature and do nothing else other than absorb that energy and feel revitalized. And you don't even have to be a vampire to do that. I mean, people do that all the time. They go out and they're in nature and they sort of let go of what they've been holding on to, and then they cycle in that fresh new energy. So really, that whole breathing in, breathing out process isn't even exclusively for nature vampires. But a nature vampire, if we're going to go off of that as a label, is a vampire that either exclusively or primarily feeds off of the energy of the elements as their primary source of food. Let's continue. Now, what I wanted to talk about is how does this tie into like nature spirits? How does this tie in to, tapping into your primal self, to that tantric energy? We're going to get into that. So it's not specifically related. It's sort of semi-related, okay? So I don't want to give you guys the impression that it's all specifically related, but it is connected. Because sexual energy is a life force, right? Sexual energy is in everything. There's somebody coming up on a bike, so probably gonna pause talking when we get to that point. But basically, when you're tapping into the primal elements, you're tapping in to the primal anima or animus or world soul, or what existed before, gods, angels, demons, things of that nature. So it's very important for us to spend time out in nature because we connect more to that raw version of ourselves, the true self. Okay? Does that mean we let that raw version just run amok? No, but we have to stay in touch with it. And one of the ways of doing that is spending time in nature. One of the other ways of doing that is doing specific rituals in nature. Okay? Now, let me pause again, because there's another really cool little piece of scenery here. So I'm going to flip it so I can talk. So, essentially, the primal self is the version of ourself that is uninhibited, okay? Think of it as the id if you're referring to the Freudian concept. Think of it as closer to the anima or animus If you're thinking about from a Jungian perspective, although the Anima and Animus tend to refer more to the inner masculine or inner feminine, when I've tapped into that energy, it's always been very primal. I'm always seeing like dragons and horned beasts and things of that nature. So that's just been my experience. So essentially, the reason why rituals that tune us back into that are important is it actually gives us an outlet for this part of our nature that is generally repressed in society. And having an outlet for this is important because we don't want our unconscious sort of taking over and doing a bunch of crazy shit because we don't have an outlet for it otherwise. Okay? It's also important because we have raw reservoirs of power. So not just people that are vampiric, but, humans in general. And I'm going to talk about this. I'm not going to give specific rituals. This is something that I will offer on Patreon probably this week or next. But it is something that I want to talk about in a general sense because it is important. Okay? So the reason why for centuries and thousands of years people have done, for example, ceremonies wearing the masks of beasts and horns and things of that nature, worshipped like the horned goddess, the horned god, and yes, there are both. I've talked about that on my channel. Definitely check that out on the horned goddess because that was actually a precursor to the horned god, believe it or not. But these energies, these archetypes within the collective consciousness, within the psyche, are very important for us to be tapped into. We can do rituals and tap into this energy. We can work with elemental spirits who can help us tap into this energy. Now, elements and elemental spirits are two different things. Elemental spirits are essentially the collective consciousness of the element itself. So what that means is you have basically social memory groups, okay, or constructs. But you also have, and we could liken these to egregores in some cases, or we could just liken them to soul group collectives, like hive minds, right? Which is really what we all are when we leave these denser regions. But I digress. When it comes to the concept of elementals, they are essentially the spirits or beings or collective consciousness of that element. So when you have, for example, the Fae, that is a specific type of being that is part of that collective. Now, these collectives can exist in different realms, but essentially they do help guide and protect and maintain balance of nature. Okay? Some of the earliest, like witches, brujas, root workers, things of that nature, shamans, they dealt with these spirits, they dealt with these beings, they communicated with them, they communed with them, right? It's important. And I'm tying this all into vampires of nature because really vampires of nature are probably what I would say one of the more quote-unquote balanced forms of vampires because they are part of that natural order. They are the breathing in and the breathing out of that nature energy. And that actually is an extension of the ecosystem at an energetic level. Okay. And we all are an extension of that ecosystem. But the reason it's different is that other vampires who also serve a purpose. And I should say for the record, I don't consider myself to be a nature vampire. Nature's one of the many forms of energy that I vampire. I'm actually use pretty much everything. And I don't really have to target anything specific because my energy is like a black hole. I just kind of walk around and absorb and transmute whatever comes my way. So be that as it may, the reason I say the nature vampires are sort of part of that is you could think of nature vampires as elementals because they are part of the breathing in and breathing out of that. In fact, there are vampiric elemental spirits. I'm not going to get into that right now either. But essentially, when you get into the dark elves and things of that nature, a lot of that has to do with that. There are also, if we're going to go off-world, there are also extra dimensional beings that are in the Pleiades that are vampires. They're very elf-like as well. One could consider them to be celestial elementals, but we're not going to go there. That is just a little sidebar for you guys. Anyway, I say all this to say that being in nature, whether you're a vampire or not, doing sex rites in nature, rituals in nature, helps tap in to the primal energy. Doing things like primal predator and prey play taps us into that. If you're into BDSM like I am, right? Things like doing age play help heal the inner child, for example. Same concept. So yes, all of this, all connected, all important. Thought it was apropos since I'm walking around in nature. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely stay tuned for more. Take care. Check out my website, thetantricdragonist.com, to book a private Akashic reading or any other reading. Also, Akashic portraits, consultations, shamanic journeys, starseed charts, primordial dragon fire healing, and much more. You can also subscribe to Patreon to learn how to do a lot of this yourself through various templates I've designed. Activate Diamond Consciousness, Activate the Black Flame, Journey the Underworld, Tantric Healing and BDSM, Astral Projection and Power, Shields, Cloaks, Wards, Learning Light Language, Exclusive and Premier Readings, Soul Fragment Retrieval, Advanced Ancestral Work, Creating Your Own Shamanic Sanctuary, and much more. Thanks for your support, and stay tuned for future videos.